Patty, POS, WCC, PhD. I don't know what half of those stand for, but I guess we'll figure it out today. I'm here with Patty to talk about the latest week of Little Brother. Are you ready to be a cunt, Patty?
Oh, I'm that person today.
What is WCC?
World class cunt.
What is CAFO?
Cheers and fuck off.
Well, let's get right into this, Pat. I mean, you already know my first question, even though I don't think you like it. But who had the best week in this messy week 3?
Okay. I think this week's episode should have been directed towards DeLeon. DeLeon, right? I think
Yes,
this week should have
Dion.
been. And DeLeon's, this should have been about him this week. And the title of the show I personally think, is DeLeon. Quando te presente al lavoro, ze una merda finora. You know what that means?
No,
DeLeon,
neither
DeLeon,
does
are you
Dion.
gonna Delion, are you gonna show up to work? So far, you're shit. That's what it means in a loose translation.
You don't think he
So
showed up by the end of the week?
it was kind of limp dick, but you want me to go for best first? I'll pull it back in. I'm sorry,
Okay, yes, go for best.
because I have way more. I have way more downs than up this week. So instead of being glass half full, I'll go glass half empty as well with being a cunt this week. Couple of them, I think. For ups, I think Nav. Um, he had an up this week. He had this coming to Jesus moment where he had this realization that he was no longer a middle of the road player, that he is actually seeing himself as a threat. If I got the gist of that properly. Um, and another question too. Are Nick, are me, Nav, Fan Guy, and Leanna the only ones who can grow a proper beard this season? Because Nick's beard was weird.
it was a little patchy to say the least.
Oh shit. Anyway, also I think cheers to Fambuse. He
Oh,
won that
really?
asteroids game. Even though and he took it like a gentleman and a scholar when Monet kind of told him she's gonna bend him over the barrel, and he's like, oh, okay, I'm not gonna freak out, that type of stuff. I think he took his licks very well. He won that power of veto, and I would have whooped his fucking ass at asteroids, but I'm sorry, Father Time. I would have destroyed you. Me and you probably played it at Pizza Hut many a Friday nights back in the 80s. Swear to God.
You
But
think you could have topped his score?
oh yeah, no problem. No problem. And I've been playing that little numbers game that you played a couple weeks ago, and
Yeah.
I just scored 178,000 on it, just limp. So yeah.
Yeah, I guess
But
you'll be
anyway,
ready for that if you ever play again.
so I get an up as well this week for improving my score with that.
Well, let's get to your downs.
Ooh, there's so many downs. Um, First of all, Monet. Down as fuck. And I just want to appeal to her, just like ask her, just stop using planetary alignment, opposing moons, and retrogrades for her mental hang up, poor gameplay, and shitty fucking judge a character. Fuck me, man. And do what us Geminis do, become a serial killer and take that lethal injection with a smile, right?
She is a Gemini, so she should do that.
Yeah, exactly. That's what I'm saying. Just become that Gemini that you're meant to be, and I'm meant to be, and take it with a smile, right?
Do you think
And
her good twin's trying to take over her evil twin?
I don't know. Sometimes there's a time and place for everything, right? And I think this week should have been the evil twin that surfaced rather than "I love you all" and "God bless" and
Yeah.
Sageburn and shit, right? Um, Leanna, I think she's a down this week for me as well. Her smoke detector finally made this fucking cameo appearance. I
It
don't know if
did.
you saw that in last night's episode, and she didn't even bother to introduce us to her smoke detector. And now we know who the real star of that household is, right?
It might be.
And it was a fucking honor to meet it finally. And
Yeah. Because it's always
it was.
chirping.
Yeah, me and my wife were like, "Oh, thank God we were there to witness this monumental moment." Another down, Mike, down for me as well. How does one go from being Don Corleone to a PB&J Uncrustables chip eating stay at home mom in his car? right?
Yes.
And another thing that bothered me about him too, he's such a big boy and he's taking these small bites and he's chewing everything 25 to 30 times each. And I just fucking hate watching people eat, by the way. And I also think he overestimated his relevance in this week's game and his pull with the other castmates. Wouldn't you
Oh,
think?
he definitely did that in his HOH week. He thought he was making all of these alliances, but this week turns out not a lot of them seemed real, I guess.
And it's funny because he went from like just kiss my ring to this high pitched little boy, which I kind of like to see. And it was fun to watch him eat that karma, basically. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Let's see what else. I think Nick's a down for me as well, even though he's in like the afterlife or the have-nots house part of the house, right? I think he told Dot way too much. If I was Nick, I would have totally fucked with Dot and be like, these people want to just totally gut you, hang you out to dry. That would have been my opportunity to kind of put a dick down to Dot, and that would have been fun to watch. That's what I think.
Do you think Nick is feeling like he's not going to be able to get back in, so maybe he's giving that information to Dot just in case Dot gets back in?
I don't know. There's three possible scenarios here with the battle pack coming up this week. You have Nick. If he can pull a wonder move like he did last season with that mathematical fluke and come back and win it all, and Days just sacrifice this game to become his guardian angel, I think that would be the greatest
Do
twist
you
of
think
all
Days
time.
of all people would do that? The one who threw him under the bus the first time?
Fuck no, but I'm just throwing out in the universe so Days gets all pissed off. I would love to see that. Like Days have this like Ebenezer Scrooge moment where because he said his target was gone anyways in some of the confessionals and some of the talks with Monet. I just like to see him like kind of take my place and become that guardian angel, which will never fucking happen in this lifetime or the next.
I don't think so either.
We have the other one, Dot. Him winning in the battle back, right?
Yes.
Which be like an early Christmas to me, basically. He loses again. It's not every day you can see one of the biggest narcissists on OCS kind of eat two shit sandwiches in one season. I would love to see his spirit crushed coming back from a battle back, and that would be fucking fantastic offering for us. You know, chef's kiss.
Mike?
Mike, he comes back and he exacts his revenge on everyone who fucked him over. That would make for great TV. I'd like to see the high pitched Mike come back and just kind of come to this head where he just starts killing everybody who got him. Because me and my wife are always we were talking about this last night as well, right? I think this is the point in the season where I fuck up. I get upset. I start to act over emotional, and I'd like to see that happen with Mike and him become that person that he keeps warning everybody about, right? He's throwing these threats out. Be that person, Mike, and show us what you're made of. Be that petty person you think you are, and just come back and be a patty. That'd be awesome.
I mean, you do keep saying, or you just said anyway, that this is the part of the season that you fuck up too. Do you think a lot of players fucked up over this past week? Because it kind of feels like it.
Absolutely. I'm a firm believer, and some of these people will get it, some of the viewers. You perform how you train, right? So everybody's kind of reverting back to the norm, their default actions, you know, like they're starting to shit their pants, or even Meg said something, she's playing the same game, right? Mike's ready to have this emotional breakdown. I firmly believe that past, and I've said this in last season, past actions indicate further behavior, right? Especially how you train. And it's going to be a hard one for me if I decide to come back as well and to kind of not act the way I did. And, oh, I forgot. Anthony didn't show up. I wanted to wish him a happy belated birthday if he watches this, you know, happy 20th.
Just
Sorry.
happy belated birthday to Anthony, who continues. I don't think he's going to be coming back, but if he ever does, it would be fun.
I pulled it back in now. So, also, I have more downs if you want to hear them.
Yeah, let's hear them. Let's hear them all.
I think this was an integral part of the season where Dazed, Aspen, and Meg's names, they were more the middle people the previous weeks, the previous 9 episodes. I also think, like, now they're on everybody's radar because their names are being spoken out of a lot of people's mouths, and I don't think that's a good position to be in, especially when people start getting angry. We're already seeing these people eat each other. Man, Yeah, I think they also kind of get it down this week, but that's a nice down coming from my mouth.
Well, let's circle back to Monet's HOH because you did talk about it. Like, what were your initial thoughts when Mike got himself off the block at first during the initial nominations?
I Bonet telling everybody who her noms were going to be that week, and then kind of I don't think Mike bulldozed or strong armed like a lot of people said. That's suggestive selling right there, and he'd make a fantastic car dealership salesperson. And I think he came to her with some honesty and said, I have this reputation that precedes me. Do you really want to mess me up? And in this case, he did. He did call it, and he says, "What if the other person wins the power of veto?" And this happens to me.
Yeah.
I think he sold his. He pitched very well. I was actually surprised. I still felt a little dirty the way he did it, but you know, to have her tell everybody who her noms were, and then just go to him in the last 20 minutes or so, and have him pitch it, and her change her mind. I think even Q said this is the difference between people who know how to play and who don't know how to play.
Yeah, Mike's pitch was top notch. It's just that he's so big of a target that his week kind of fell apart after that. And one of the elements you said he was, I don't forgot your term, but DeLeon was one of the elements to really push Mike on the block with Monet here because DeLeon's noticing that Monet is messing up her own game by making enemies but not targeting the enemies at the same time.
Well, I think Deleon, you can see his gears start to grind, and he had zero, he had like that zero sparkle in his eyes the past few episodes, and for him to cause that problem and be able to sell in a personal attack on Mike, I think that kind of jump started Deleon's engine and battery, and just make him move forward. And I hope we see more, because just because you jumpstart something doesn't mean it's going to run for a while or continue to perform at a level that we expect to see from him.
I do feel like DeLeon's one of those players that needs a target to be able to start his game really moving. Do you feel that way when you play? Like, if you have a target, is it easier to play the game because you at least have a target?
Yeah, and me and my wife talked about this too, and I think we talked about it as well. And I'm kind of trying to buck this whole perspective of finding one target to jumpstart the machine. Like I joked around, like every time I play with Meg, I would try to bring her down and get her eliminated, be that 3-time giant killer. But and I'm not going to take that perspective going in, but we've joked about this, but I think Deleon picking his initial target, but everybody has to be on a target with you at this point. You can't just have one target, because you're going to always rub somebody the wrong way, especially if they have duos and trios and quartets and
Yeah.
all that other shit. Even though you think you're doing good and you do it on the sly, and he's pretty vocal about it. I just think it always comes back to bite you in the ass. You always have to treat everybody like a potential target, especially when you're coming in to win.
Yeah, I mean, I agree with that for sure.
And I'm taking I kind of took a week off to kind of stay away from the social media shit and just kind of stay in touch with the strategy in this game and watching everybody fuck up. That's why you're seeing a tone in my voice that's different. I'm not acting as jovial and playful this week. This is more business and more murdering this time around.
Well, speaking of murdering, this was the week. I told you off air last week, I think, that this was like a mixed cocktail week because, it started slow, but by the end of the week, everybody's throwing everyone under buses here. We have D throwing Meg under the bus. Meg is caught in a lie by Days and Mike. What
Yeah.
did you think of that conversation?
Up to Meg for being able to be caught in your lies and still stay under the radar. That was a fantastic move. I think we're getting to that point now where people are starting to slip and they can't remember their lies. Hence that quote that I gave last week. If you tell the truth, you don't have to remember anything. And now, like, the fog of war is happening, and all this shootings going on. All these people are getting fucking maimed and tattered, and they can't remember what they're saying. And people who are a little bit more keen and pay attention and remember more. I think a lot of these younger players, they put all their money on the recency effect. They think just because this, but older players like me and more spiteful and hateful players who run on anger and caffeine and drugs are going to remember everything you say, and we're going to use it against you as we progress forward. And I think Meg got a nice little buy by not getting her ass eaten as hard as, I would have hopped on that in a previous life, but I don't know. And I would have kind of drew some of the attention in her direction. If she's going to lie to you guys, she's going to lie to me, and vice versa. She's lied to me in the past. She's very, I would have played. I would have played on the paranoia just like Deleon was as well in Liana.
I mean, would you say Dee Dee's trying to play on paranoia too? She keeps chirping in people's ears about people. Now her name's getting around now because of that, but she is kind of ramping up paranoia her own.
She is, and I agree with you, and she is. She's kind of feeding that monster, but she would have lost all credibility with me. With she couldn't figure out what a POS was, and she was googling that shit, and my parents that was my nickname for me growing up. So I think all threats from her would have just been quelled for the week, and I wouldn't have took her as seriously, which is funny. And I said last week some of her knowledge is street and intuition. Is it a white person thing to say POS, or does that get tossed? I grew up in the hood. I never heard that get tossed around except with my family, but it was kind of cute and a fatal flaw for her this week with me. And she's been the joke of the week basically with this whole thing.
Do you think that keeps her under the radar though, because nobody takes her seriously? But yeah, she is. I mean, she's on Aspen and Alex's radar, but really nobody else's. I guess maybe Meg.
I don't want to say that I don't think they take her seriously, because I believe some of the people, her fellow castmates, were saying, she's good at what she does. She's the GOAT and all this other stuff. If that was just, I want to say, an intentional, strategical blonde moment just to kind of pull some of the stuff away from her. I don't know if that was one of the things she did intentionally, or that was just a true moment where she had a fucking brain fart. I don't know.
It could be a little slow, so it could go either way. I don't know.
Nothing surprises me anymore, and maybe that was a little foot shuffle and her block and parry to kind of throw people off. I don't know, but well done.
Now you mentioned something during the chat over this some of these. I think the second episode of the week about Liana and some of her lying or the truth. And do you want to touch upon all that?
I can't remember the exact context, but I think she said something that wasn't consistent with what she said before. And a lot of people are like, even her saying that she knows everything, but she's not willing to share. I forget the exact context where she said something, and I'm listening to this on my bed right now, or at the time it was happening, and my wife's like, "Hey, she's lying about that." I just can't. I'm going to have to do some homework and pull that back in. But
well, she was lying about, like, I don't know what context you're talking about, but she did lie to Mike saying she would vote out Alex if those were on the block, and then she told Alex she would keep him if he was on the block with Mike. So she did lie to Mike.
And another thing too is like she wasn't exactly upfront and honest with the whole fan guy not using his power veto on that first one, I believe. That was part that rubbed me kind of wrong too. Like, and fan guy didn't throw it back on her, but they're more subtle and less egregious, I think, than some of the other people's faux pas, if you say. They're small in the context where they're not tripping people's radars as quickly, and the more you get in her ass, the louder she gets. I don't know if anybody wants to lose 30% of their hearing having a verbal battle with her this season.
Like, what do you think about the whole matriarchy alliance though at this point? Like, what, because they're always all over the place on most of these votes.
I think that was kind of cool where they kind of just piled up on Aspen and kind of called her on her bullshit, and she couldn't do anything. I was even squirming in my chair, right? Yeah. I felt this is bad, and I felt uncomfortable for her. And watching one of those interviews, I think it was with Fan Guy and maybe someone else, Dave's, where the whole fucking time she's smoking a J and not saying shit. And I'm just like, I actually felt uncomfortable for her, but if she gets what she has coming to her, I'm okay with that as well.
Last week you thought she might be one of the noms this week. How do you think she's avoiding the block despite her sloppy, messy gameplay.
I think it's the rotten fruit on the tree syndrome, or we could backdoor this bigger guy and we could always get her later. I think they're weighing. I think even Fan Guy said the lesser of the two evils. So I think get rid of the big fish first, then take care of the guppies later. I think that's what allowed her to slide by this week, and I was completely wrong. I thought she'd be an easy pick, but like I said, go for the bigger fish and not the guppies this episode.
Do you think the women want to just keep protecting each other though? Because it seems that way. Even though in the chats during the episodes they keep acting like it's not a real alliance, but like at this time in the game, they're still acting like it's a real alliance by protecting each other.
Well, I think the whole safety and numbers thing is a smart thing at this point too, because we're at the juncture in the season where people are starting to pick up and feelings are starting to get hurt. They're becoming more aggressive and harder. So I think that even though Aspen may not be that person that's in the group that they trust, I think there's still strength in numbers, and they could still use that because she's gonna have to do some like praying and some rosaries with these people and say, I'm sorry I fucked up, and she's gonna have to eat some crow that kind of make her survive. And I think they're just using that strictly for the numbers right now and safety and numbers. Then they'll let that one get picked off once the more aggressive alpha males and other people come out to eat her ass.
How do you feel about Alex? He survives another vote here. He has his reputation as a snake, and yet he's slithering through once again.
Kudos to Alex for cockroaching himself out of this one again. I think he's starting to cast his net, and they know he's a liar, but they're starting to give him that extension of faith and trust to kind of maneuver the numbers. This is all numbers right now. I think once it starts to slim down, the roster starts to slim down, he'll be another easy pick. But I was thrown off by Mike's Dom this week too. So like I said, I'm wrong more than I'm right in some of these cases, but I'm starting to see a little closer detail. Kudos to him for warming out of this one.
To you, what is more of a threat? The big competition threat like Mike, who's good at competitions, or the snake like Alex?
If we could put them in different categories, because like if Mike threatened me and kind of insinuated, like say if I was HOH this week instead of Monet, if he would have kind of did that to me, I would have been just like, yeah, I don't care. I don't care. If you're my target, you're not going to sell it out because you would do the same thing to me. And Fan Guy gave Mike that period of grace on the first episode when he was on the block, and for Mike to come back and say I don't owe him anything or anybody else. He's like, everybody wants to work with me, but I don't owe them anything. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So if you're going to put your neck on the line for someone like that who is going to back you up when the time comes or sell you short or sell you out, that to me is especially if you think he's your number two, or he's someone who's going to get you later on. No, he's not. He even said, I think in one of his confessionals, his priority is him winning. And to me, if you're going to extend that loyalty and fight for someone and them just stick you down at the back end of it, that's dangerous. But Alex, on the other hand, he's a snake, and you just got to be the snake handler and let him kind of wiggle around and do his own thing, maybe bite a couple of people along the way, but you also keep him on a tight leash and get ready to chop his head off when you need to. So they're both dangerous in each other's way,
So you're kind of saying Mike's a snake too, then.
Yeah, but I'm gonna say he's higher up on the food chain, I think, than Alex is. So I don't know, maybe a weasel or a badger, maybe a weasel or a mongoose or something, because they kill snakes, right?
I guess I don't really know.
Yeah. Anyways, they can eat cobras, but I think they both are valid threats, and neither one of them should be dismissed or allow them to sell their reputation to be more aggressive than the others, because they're both equally dangerous in their own ways.
We haven't really touched upon Dazed much this podcast. What'd you get from Dazed this past week? Because he was really, he's had this thing with Aspen and Alex, but this week he thought, Mike's this bigger target in front of him. I need to save Mike. He fails at that in the end. But what did you think about Days' game?
I think Days was more worried about the fact that if Mike won the battle back and he voted against him, that he'd be a target that Mike's going to go after. I think a lot of this was self preservation. I think since he's doing so well and keeping on the radar, under the radar, and kind of like you know commingling with other people who are getting the blood on their hands, and he's making suggestions. I don't think he wants to get his hands dirty like Liana thinks she is and building her resume. I I think it's a self preservation thing. Mike comes back from that battle back. It depends who says the wrong thing when he has his little conniption fit or blows up. I don't know if Days gets put under pressure. Mike confronts him in the wrong way. Days is going to speak up and say "fuck you," and he'd be an easy target for Mike. So, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Hey, Mike, I stuck up for you in the noms. You won this battle back, and you're back in the game, or whoever. Because the threat's still not gone, and it's going to be fun to watch. But I think it was the either or scenario where he's like, if somebody does come back who is an enemy of mine, like he also has Dot as well. I don't think he's as worried about Nick. And if that comes out, Dot wins the fucking battle back. Your mama's a hoe thing. You guys know what you did. Your mama's a hoe. That shit's gonna come back and bite his whole ass in Q style, right? So I think he's just he knows the odds are against Nick to come back in this battle back. I think he's just playing the numbers and playing the odds game. Who's going to come back and bite him the hardest? That's what I think.
Now, one of my, I guess, favorite messy chats of the week was that last group chat. Days was late to it, but all the other voters are there. And DeLeon comes in and basically gaslights the entire chat that Mike said that Monet and that his targets were Monet and Didi, even though that was a lie. What did you think about that chat with DeLeon?
I like it. I like it. He's painting the walls. He's ready to put his plastic up in his kill room. It's just a little bit slow for me. I think is good on his behalf to kind of start planting those seeds and getting his kill room ready. But I don't know. I would have been a little bit harder than he drew his line in the sand. DeLeon did, but he's not ready to step over it in full force or commit to it. So I think he's just kind of putting his toes in the water. He's putting his toes in the water, and he's realizing it's too cold yet, and he ain't ready to jump in it until it's proper temp.
I still feel though like that last chat kind of put the stamp that Mike was going home that week. I don't think anybody was going to change their mind after that.
Yeah, and DeLeon kind of owned that and said, "I'm going to do what I have to do to get him, send him home this week, and I'm going to take credit for that." So I think Liana did her move with switching. Who was that? D's vote.
Yeah.
To throw it over.
Although so I think a waste, but
yeah, but waste to some. That whole old saying, one man's junk is another man's pleasure. I meant treasure. But anyway, I think if it comes to that point where there's a jury, she can say, I helped get rid of one of the strongest threats in the game. Same with DeLeon. I think this is constructive resume building this week, I think, without fully committing to it and owning that bitch, right?
Yeah.
And this is where I fuck up. I'd be taking all credit and peacocking around. There's more slick ways of doing it. There's greasier ways of doing it.
Yeah, DeLeon was kind of more like you here. I feel like he's trying to take credit publicly for a lot of these things rather than being more sly about it, I suppose.
Yeah, and it's good for some and it's bad for others. Like obviously that hasn't worked out for me, and DeLeon may not work out for him as well, because I think Dot even says, eventually he's going to say something that's going to piss someone off, and that's when they're donezo, right? So he's got to learn how to manage his tap dance routine a little bit more carefully, so he doesn't get his fucking dick in a blender coming up, which I think will happen. They're gonna get tired of his shit.
They usually do in these games, but sometimes he skates by when they do. Even so,
you can only skate. You can only skate so far before it catches up with you, unless you have some kind of divine intervention. And I don't know. Maybe he'll have some favor from God where it'll carry him through. But like me, when you piss enough people off, it isn't going to work out well for you.
You don't think the Big Brother gods, much like Aspen's internet going out at the right time, won't happen to Dillian?
I love how everybody in the chats were trying to diagnose her internet connectivity. Oh, we think this was intentional, and you had the other camp saying no. I even think Q said something about it. You can hear the, you know,
Yeah.
you can hear the breakup in the voice. I think it's a combination of both. I think because think about this. I'm talking to you right now, and I'll suddenly go,
I don't know. Was it because of acting, though, Patty?
But I'm just thinking. I just think she's too fucking high to play it off. But I think it's a combination of both because poor self service, everything else is an excuse or missing a meeting like I had in my first season or time zone changes. But they're already starting to move in that direction where they're saying, is this intentional? Is this actually her cell phone service? And you can't have two people with horrible cell phone service in this game and horrible audio. I think that's gonna just. I don't fucking know, dude. That that kind of pissed me off. That was, yeah. Technical difficulties in this time of age is just atrocious, considering we have 5G and all that other shit.
Yeah.
And she's West Coast, right? Like Seattle area.
Yeah, Portland.
Yeah, they have some of the best fucking cell phone services and highest concentration of cell phone towers, and that's that neck of the woods. So I think unless she was like somewhere weird going through a mountain pass, I doubt that.
So let's get to go to this battle back. Who do you really think is going to win this competition to get back in the game between Dot, Nick, Mike?
It depends what they're good at. I think Mike also said, "You better hope it's not something I'm good at or something
Yeah.
I'm bad at." You know, I think Q even said that there's no such thing as a comp beast. I think some of it has to do with luck. Like, I think I would have thrived in asteroids if you were to do stupid, inane trivia questions that no one else knows the answers to except for Patty. I think I would thrive in that. It depends what your sick and twisted mind throws at those three next week. If it's QR codes and stuff at Target, Nick's got it.
Oh, Nick has that.
If you have some kind of gaming convention or Comic Con questions, I think Mike's going to do that. And if you have some competition who the best liar is, Dot's going to thrive in that environment as well. So it depends on which fucking sick and twisted route you take next week. I hope it's true to your form, and you just have them all try to kill each other to keep their heads above water.
I'm not going to spoil the battle back comp, but the new HOH comp coming up. I don't think you lasted long enough in survival to make it to that competition. But it's the competition where they have to put a shirt over their face. But in this scenario, I made it harder. They have to put their arms. They have to keep their arms in this position for 38 minutes without going over. Who do you think will win that competition?
Oh man, that scavenger hunt that you did, I doubt any of their physical agility or stamina or any of that other stuff's going to come into play. Off soft asses. Um, I know Daze is losing weight and he's got on. I don't even think he's exercising. I think Fan Guy would peter out very quickly. Who knows? Um, I you have several things in this equation. You have physical stamina, stubbornness. Like I said earlier, people like me are fueled on hate, anger, rage, caffeine, everything else. I would do that until my arms fell off. But I think someone like D would probably do well. She's her body mass index type thing isn't overboard. She isn't leaning in one direction. I think maybe some of the skinnier players whose arms are smaller and don't have as much upper body mass will thrive in this. Um, Shit, I think if Nick was playing this, he'd be out in a minute. He'd probably have an asthma attack. Um, it's hard to say. Maybe Delion will do well because I know some of that shit they do in flight attendant school where you have to do the planks and sit against the wall in a squatting position for a while to kind of do the emergency landing thing. I think he do well on this one too.
Well, any other predictions you want to make for this upcoming week?
I don't know.
It's a tough week to predict because we're coming off of a mess and we have a battle back to come.
Um I think next week I'm going to pay attention more to the body language and those nonverbal communication cues that we're seeing. I picked up on a lot of them already. You know, like when Mike's the Godfather, he has this deep, super intentional demeanor. But when he's compromised, his safety's compromised, he goes high pitched. I've been keeping notes on all your guys' ranges, all your guys' quirks.
What do you get out of Fan Guy's hair touching?
I think I recommended the other night that you should get one of those cone collars or one of those satellite collars that they put on dogs to keep them from chewing at their nuts with stitches in it. I think one of those cone collars and fucking oven mitts for Fan Guy, Fambuse, to put him on. Stop playing with his hair. I know. I'm just seeing that thin black line under his fingernails from all the grime and shit from him playing with his hair. It's almost to the point. I don't know if it's to the point where it's so long it's just bothering him and it's almost like a neuroses or it's nerves. I'm gonna lean on the side it's more of a neurotic behavior, nervous gesture because I don't think his. I just think it's one of those things. I don't think it's nerves. I don't think it's him losing his edge. It's just one of those fucking gross. I swear to God, he's one of the reasons why I cut off my hair, even shorter.
You shaved it this week?
Oh, I got a mohawk. It's sort of like Dave's, but the way my hair grows in, it's super thick on top of yes, I do have all my hair still. It just gets super gross, and you know I shower every day, so it's not gonna be greasy like Fan Guys, but you know, um, when my hair was longer, I did tend to play with it a little bit more. But nice little high and tight mohawk, as you can see, it's growing in. My beard's growing in pretty quick.
Yeah, when I have a beard, I like to fucking rub my beard too much.
Yeah, me too. Me too, especially when it gets in the longer phases.
Yeah.
But I don't know, Nick. There's a lot of disappointment this week with me. It's just like you keep ramping it up that DeLeon's going to pull through and wow me.
I don't know if I'm ramping it up. I was just saying he was at least going to come out, and he did this week.
Okay, then I'll rephrase what I said. I don't want to say ramping up. You're giving me that strip tease. You're kind of showing me your panty line, but you ain't committing to show me the whole kit caboodle. It's just one of those things where you kind of show me and you pull it off. So I don't fucking know, but you're a genius. You have sick and twisted motives. I still think we're all
Do I?
good. It takes a special breed of person to throw these curveballs at us, and I still think we're all going to end up in your kill room in some fucking remote location, which is be awesome.
I'm not Saw. I am not Saw.
Okay, more like Marquis de Sade, but you know, you're a sadist, but not Saw.
Yes.
Like you said, it's a mixed cocktail. Like I said, I've learned a lot from these people and watching them, and this is the whole realization moment, self-realization and actualization where I'm just like, would I thrive in this position or what? Because I always thrive in chaos, right? Would I be able to kind of pull it back and keep my mouth shut at this point? Because
it's a chaotic week, and it's about to be another chaotic week, so I don't know.
and if I can give a good analogy for the viewers, this ship is starting to sink. There's holes popping up everywhere. It's just, who are they going to be the biggest rats that are going to keep their head above the water the longest? Because this ship's taking on water very quickly. You're seeing people panic. It's exciting. It's boring at the same time because every time they find a piece of driftwood or a life preserver or whatever, they're all fucking cool with each other. You got to fill those cabins. They all got to be caught under sea level, below the deck, with that water rising quickly. And I think they're gonna have any time for kumbaya moments.
No, probably not. Any final thoughts on the week?
I love the fact that things are starting to get ramped up, and also the cast members are getting a little bit stressed now. It's no longer time for fun and play. I think they're starting to realize that, you know, these duos and my number twos are actually number twos in real life. Um, I think a lot of them are going to have to redevelop their strategies because Mike's a perfect example. He could be the most awesome gamer in the world, but you're also an easy target that way. And Nav dodged a bullet this week too. I don't want to see him like I said last week. I want to see more warrior, less vegan. I just don't want him to get so cocky where he steps on his own dick coming up. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I don't know, man. This is the point where I think everybody's going to have to tighten up their game and redevelop some of these strategies and actually rethink who's on their side and who's not, because this was a perfect example this week
Oh yeah.
of learning the hard
Everybody
way.
was just trying to throw everyone under the bus to protect themselves this past week.
Yeah, besides what I said was the title of the show with DeLeon, I think this week is also, fuck around and find out week as well. You know, I think people are starting to learn that these loyalties and these alliances being absolutely dick right now.
Yep. I mean, if you're gonna make 200 alliances, you're aligned to really nobody. So that is where we are.
Another thing I noticed too, Nick, is like the votes. The votes are, with the exception of the first week where it was close enough, these votes are leaning super heavy on one side. I don't know if you've taken that into consideration, but there's no margin of error here. It's just such a big gap. These people are getting gapped, and I'm just like,
Well, this one would have been 5-3 without Liana's switch of vote.
so it's close enough. But with that being said, I've noticed like the gaps seem to increase with the voting range. It's not as close. It would have been kind of cool to see a tie and see somebody speak up, or vice versa. But 5-3, still, still not close enough to fucking throw things off.
Nope. But everybody's playing their own game. I know people in the comments are saying Monet's not, but honestly, there was a commenter, I think Miracle, said that Monet, she might have had a week, but she's not going to be the biggest target coming out of this week because everybody else is making their targets so big, and I agree with that.
Well, you think about this. Just say Mike wins the battle back. You don't think he's gonna not renom her, put her up on the block as just spite?
Do you think Mike would be more pissed at Monet or some of these people that lied to him and voted him out?
Okay, and I'm glad you said this. You remember, I told you Monet's votes are going to be swayed by who chirps the loudest in her ear.
Mm-hmm.
And was I right? And I even said something in the comments last night. I saw how her conversation was going, Mike, and I was like, "Oh Jesus Christ, it's me, it's not you." And I said that, and she said it like 5 minutes later, and I took a screenshot of that. I was like, "Wife, I fucking called this shit." And I with her planetary alignment issues and all that other stuff, and her opposing moons, I don't know. I just stop blaming it on that shit and just grow a pair. Go for it.
Maybe the plants will align and she will grow a pair. I guess we'll have to find out.
I think she's obviously going to be she's going to be put up if Mike wins that and he gets HOH. I think there's going to be retribution there if that happens. We'll see what happens. I fear for her, and rightfully so, especially when things go wrong. And think about this too. She told everybody who she's going to nom and put up. Who's that? Who did that piss off?
I mean, it should have pissed off some people.
So I don't know. We're all on borrowed time. I just don't know when her time's going to expire. It's going to happen, especially if someone who happens to have some tricks up their sleeves is kind of upset and has some heartburn about that from the previous week. I'm glad it's not me. I'm glad
it's not you this time. It's not you this time. But we're gonna have to end it there for this week. Patty, thank you for joining me. Happy belated to Anthony, I suppose.
Yeah, well, I don't know why he's not showing up, but anyways, he made 2 dates with me and he broke them both. So, Nick, fire your PR agent. Still, I still feel the same as last week.
All right.